Parshas Lech. This week's Parsha, straight out of the box. First verse, first pasuk. That's Perek Yud Beis pasuk Aleph. That's 12:1. Reads as follows: Vayomer Hashem el Avram. Hashem says to Avram. There's been a mention of Avram before, Abraham, but there's been no discussion. There's been no description of who he is. This is our first encounter with any interaction, certainly between Hashem and Avram. Hashem says to Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha. It's an interesting phrase, Lech lecha, go for you, from your land, mi moladetcha, from your birthplace, umi beis avicha, and from your father's house, el ha'aretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you. So before we analyze this verse at all, I'd like to point out something that I'm reminded that my good friend, Dr. David Margulis, has frequently mentioned to me, that Hashem's first interaction with each of our three forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, has always, each time, makes mention of the land of Israel. We have this here, El Ha'aretz Asher Areka, to the land that I will show you. It's a little bit cloaked in mystery, because Hashem doesn't identify the land, but eventually he does. And he says the land that I will show you, which is a clear reference to the land of Israel. Then you have Yitzchak. Hashem appears to him in Perek Chavav, pasuk Aleph, that's 26:1. Says, Al Tered Mitzrayma. He tells Yitzchak, don't go down to Egypt. Shchon ba'aretz asher omar lecha. Dwell in the land that I will tell you. Again, an allusion to the land of Israel. Dwell in the land that I will show you. And then for Yaakov, this is Perek Chav Gimel, pasuk Yud Gimel. That's 28:13. Hashem says, he introduced himself. Ani Elokei Avraham, I am the Lord of Avram, etc. Ha'aretz asher ata shochev aleha. The land upon which you are lying, I will give to you and to your children. So we see that the land of Israel is central to the relationship of Hashem to our forefathers, and of course to us, the descendants of our forefathers. Now, how about this verse itself in Parshas Lech? The Netziv asks a question which is reflected in some of the writings of Reb Noach Weinberg and others, which is, this seems to be in reverse order. From your land, from your birthplace, and mibeis avicha. Well, wouldn't you usually, once you've left your land, you've left everything, right? So why does it say from your land and then moladetcha? Why doesn't it just say lech lecha me'artzecha? As a matter of fact, the Yakar asks the same question. Now, the Yakar says that actually Hashem is engaging in a little bit of persuasive discussion here. It's more difficult to wrap your head around leaving your birthplace. It's a little bit easier to leave your country in the sense of what your country represents to you, your nation, and other Meforshim as well, that you have a sense of belonging to a country, and the country may inspire you, but you may not have a relationship of immediacy with your countrymen who are spread all over the place. On the other hand, Moladetcha, your birthplace, well, that is more, and that many of the commentaries say that this refers to an extended family, a clan, if you will, or your neighborhood, where you have grown up and presumably have stuck around, or some other replacement for that kind of thing. And then Beis Avicha refers to the family, and according to many of the commentaries, refers to the economic station that a person has. If he's in a base of, if he's in the family, he's part of the Yerusha, he's part of the inheritance, etc. So according to the Yakar, Hashem is kind of softening up Avraham in going from the easier to conceptualize about leaving or abandoning, and then going from the less difficult to the more difficult. Another opinion, you could lump Rabbeinu B'chayeh and the Abarbanel together, not precisely, but they're conceptually referring to different types of influences that Hashem is trying to get people away from, trying to get Avram away from, and his descendants as well. The land, Ur Kasdim, filled with sorcerers, etc. Moladetcha, his birthplace, filled with neighbors who are Ovdei Avodah Zarah. Beis Avicha, we know that Terach was not only a servant of Avodah Zarah, but he also a manufacturer of idols. So there seems to be a distancing from a pagan worship, from the dominant culture of that society. Rabbeinu B'chayeh, I mentioned earlier, talks about staying away from foolish people and seeking the company of Chachamim. Reb Noach Weinberg, who I had the merit of studying with while I was in a different yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. I used to go on weekends to Yerushalayim, and would for some period of time would make it my business to stop at Eish Torah and to hear Reb Noach give one of his famous classes on the 48 Ways to Wisdom. So he says when we talk about these three categories, we're really talking about three different spheres of influence that a person must confront and address, analyze, and determine whether there's something there for him to take with him or whether he has to reject it. And that is, first of all, me'artzecha. The eretz, he says, is the general influence of society, the prevailing norms, the prevailing values and ethics, which may or may not be compatible with a life that is devoted to the service of the truth, the service of Hashem. So that's eretz. Then you have moledet, the birthplace or your immediate neighborhood, which is your immediate society, your friends, your neighbors, who may or may not be engaged in wholesome activity. They may be engaged in destructive types of activity. All of those not only have an influence, but they communicate either explicitly or implicitly some values that are important to examine, to identify and to examine. You may live in a neighborhood that values, puts a heavy emphasis on conspicuous consumption, for example, a fancier car, a bigger house, etc. So all of these, unless you lead the examined life, if you will, you can absorb those values subconsciously and just continue and think that that's perfectly normal. And then, of course, you have your immediate family. And when you're dealing with immediate family that has values that you want to emulate, that's a wonderful thing. That can serve as a platform, as a springboard for even higher achievements. But some people don't have a family background that is conducive to that. Some people come from a family background which is extremely negative, which tears people down, which doesn't express their love, which engages in empty kinds of activities, where the dominant activity during free time is watching TV or sports talk radio or something else that has absolutely no value. I do not mean to imply that any of these activities in appropriate measure are valueless. Sometimes they can be of value, at least to relax, etc. But if that's the dominant culture, if the dominant culture is all about things that really don't matter, then one develops a life that's surrounded by things and that's involved in, that's steeped in things that really don't matter. So part of the challenge of living a meaningful life is to examine our assumptions that come from our greater society, our immediate society, and our very family, and to determine what of any of the features of those different spheres are valuable and worth internalizing and carrying them with us as we go on in our life, as we go to our own promised land. And there may be values that are antithetical to leading a life in the promised land. In Avram's case, they were all antithetical. And Hashem says, leave the influence of your society, of your general society. Leave the influence of your neighborhood, your birthplace, your friends, if they're toxic. And finally, leave, he says to Avram, leave the influence of your family, which is dedicated to Avodah Zarah, and go to the land that I will show you. This is considered to be one of the first of the 10 tests of Avram. Is he prepared to follow Hashem and to do the very difficult work of shedding the negative influences that crop up within an individual unwittingly and without notice, unless one pays attention to them. And ultimately, if we can do that, then we can, both in a physical sense and in a spiritual sense, reach the promised land. Have a good chance.